3 years ago, I was stuck in a job that I hated. I was making mediocre money, no real path forward. Today, my cleaning business does over $40,000 per month, and I manage the entire thing from my laptop in about 1 to 2 hours per day without ever touching a mop. So in this video, I'm gonna walk through exactly how I built this business from zero, the timeline, the strategies that worked, and the mistakes that I made, and what I'd do differently if I had to start from scratch in 2026. This is the complete roadmap so you can copy what worked and you can skip what didn't. Let's begin. Let me start by telling you exactly where I was when I began the journey, because I want you to understand that I didn't have any special advantages. I was working a full-time job that personally I couldn't stand, had about a few $1,000s saved up to put into a new investment, and was desperately looking for a way out. I wasn't some business genius or serial entrepreneur. I was just a guy who was tired of trading time for money. So I spent weeks researching, looking up different business models. I looked at drop shipping. To me, the margins weren't really good. It felt like gambling and it didn't seem like a real business. I considered real estate, but I didn't have the capital to get started. It's something that requires a lot. I thought about starting an Amazon FBA business, but I had done that previously and it didn't work out. And then I discovered the cleaning industry, which I had previous experience in. And there were three things that immediately stood out to me. First, ongoing demand. People always need their homes cleaned regardless of the economy. Number two, low barrier to entry. I didn't need some special licenses, certification, or years of training, which is often the case in other home services. And third, because of technology, it could be run remotely. I didn't want to trade one job for another where I was still trading all my time for money. So I spent about 2 weeks researching before I made my first move. And that research phase was probably a little longer than I would have wanted, but it was crucial for everything that came afterwards. So here's exactly what I did in those first 2 weeks. And this was the foundational work to me that saved months of trial and error later. I first researched pricing from my 5 to 10 competitors in my area. I didn't just look at their websites, right? So that's what most people will do. I actually called them pretending to be a potential client. I asked them about pricing for different homes, what was included, how they handled scheduling, everything. And with that, I built a detailed spreadsheet of what everyone was charging, what services they offered, how they positioned themselves in the marketplace. This gave me the confidence in my own pricing, which I think was critical. Second, I used a business phone. It was open phone at the time. This took me about 15 minutes. Cost a little bit, but I wanted to do it just so I looked professional from day one. And then third, I looked up legal requirements in the area that I was trying to start my business. So I needed to get insurance. I needed to register an LLC, all those things that are required for a first-time business. And that was pretty much it. Honestly, I didn't have a fancy website. I didn't even have business cards. I didn't have any complicated systems. I just had the basics to get started legally and professionally. So month one was all about proving the concept worked. I wasn't really trying to make a lot of money at the time. I was just trying to see if people would actually pay me to coordinate cleaning services. So my method when I first started was just pure cold calling. I bought a list of real estate agents. I would call 50 to 100 people per day. My script, very simple. I was just saying, introducing myself, hey, this is Michael from company name. I'm calling realtors in the service area to let them know we're providing professional cleaning services and giving first-time discounts for anyone who's interested. Cold calling obviously was brutal at first. I got hung up on a lot, but I got to practice my pitch. I got to practice being comfortable on the phone as a first-time owner, and I tracked everything, right? The calls that I made, the conversations I had, the appointments that I set, and then the closed sales. So even after making 100 calls, I knew my conversion was around 2%, which wasn't great, but it was working. So that's when I knew, okay, people actually want this. I just need to do enough volume and I can scale this. So I got a couple clients within the first week just by doing that. And by the end of the second week, I'd already made a few $100s in profit. But here's the key. Instead of keeping that money and being like, okay, this is mine to have, I immediately reinvested it into ads and continued to cold call. So by the end of the first month, I had made around $1,500, $2,000 in revenue and over $1,000 in profit. But then I made my first major mistake. To me, at the time, it felt like I almost killed my business before it started. So I had posted on your local job board, Craigslist, Indeed, looking for experienced cleaners, all those kinds of things. I got a bunch of responses and honestly hired the first person who seemed decent over the phone. Lo and behold, this first cleaner didn't even show up to my first job. They didn't call, they didn't text, nothing. I was panicking. I remember recalling the whole thing is going to collapse. This person is going to out me in front of everybody. I'd promised my client a professional cleaning service and now I had no one to do the work. So obviously I was mortified and had to call the client to reschedule, which was humiliating. Luckily, they were open to it and cool with it at the time. And that's when I realized I couldn't just post a job and hire literally anyone who responded. I actually needed a real process to doing this. So I started screening screening calls with every applicant. There were specific questions I started to develop. Do they have reliable transportation? What's their actual availability? How many years of professional residential cleaning experience do they have? Can you pass a background check? And then I started doing test cleans before giving them real jobs. That way I can actually observe their quality, punctuality, communication. This process took more time up front, but started to eliminate some of the problems, like not having a cleaner show up to the first job. So to me, this one mistake probably saved me more money later on because I took it really seriously. I never had to have that be a problem on my actual onboarding process from that point on. But then I made another costly mistake in my first couple months. I honestly kept discounting my services to get sales instead of really just holding firm at the market rate from my research. I know a lot of people do this when they're first starting out because they're not comfortable on the phones and they don't know the value of their services. Whenever someone seemed hesitant, I would literally just lower my pricing right on the spot just to win the business. Now, obviously today, that's not the best thing in the world and I don't do that, but that was what I was doing at the time. And this honestly killed my profit margins, started to attract the wrong types of customers who were really never going to be good long-term clients. So I was essentially just afraid of losing a sale. And I think that fear drove poor actions on my part. So months 2 and 3 were when everything started to click more, right? Because I fixed the fundamental mistakes I just mentioned that I was making. First, I fixed my cleaning screening process, right? So I just mentioned it. All of that stuff was now dialed in. This at least was starting to de-stress me in the sense that I had a process for bringing people on. Second, I stopped discounting and started to position myself as a premium service. So when someone would ask for a lower price, I wasn't just giving it and laying that down, right? I was defending my quality, reliability, here's what you get, increasing the perceived value. And then third, I started offering recurring packages, right? I've said this many times on the channel, but these are the game changers because it gave clients an incentive to commit while giving me predictable revenue. By the end of the third month, I had over 15 clients recurring. I was doing over 4,000 recurring and I was doing over $10,000 top line. By the way, if you want to start and scale your own remote cleaning business with extra help, including all my templates, processes, systems, all that stuff, and support to guide you through every step, click the first link in the description to learn more. So once I was able to hit that 10K consistently, I knew I needed to start thinking like a real business owner instead of just someone getting good at getting clients. Now, the problem was that everything was in my head. So if anyone asked me how I did all these things, I'd literally have to explain it differently each time. And if a new client called, I'd ask different questions depending on how I was, on that day. So this lack of systems really was killing my ability to scale. So the first thing I started doing was documenting everything I was doing. I was creating all of the processes that we just talked about into a uniform thing that I could repeat. I knew that if I had someone coming into my business one day, that these are the kinds of things that need to be dialed in so it can scale consistently with the same quality that I have now learned to operate under. Now, this might seem boring, but to me, that's the foundation that allowed me to scale beyond what I could personally manage. When everything was documented, I can then delegate the task to other people without having to explain everything from scratch every time, because that to me is a huge opportunity waste of time if you're doing that over and over and over again. Because to me, that's the true time suck. If you have to repeat yourself for the same thing over and over and over again, that's the time, and that should be your signal. Hey, I need to make a system for this. From there, I started to expand my service area across multiple cities. So this wasn't random expansion. I was strategic about it. I looked for areas with similar demographics to my successful clients, higher income households, busy professionals, families with kids. I'd hire cleaners in these locations so I could serve these clients without having my team drive all over the city, right? This was a crucial thing for efficiency, profitability. So instead of having cleaners drive an hour, they could do multiple cleanings within the same little pocket. This allowed me to take on more clients without increasing my operational complexity or drive times for my cleaners. I was also starting to put door hangers in the specific neighborhoods that I had targeted, right? Professional cleaning with satisfaction guaranteed and having it refer to that area, right? So that's going to be things that I've also mentioned in the channel on different videos, but same strategy there. But to me, during that period of time, the biggest breakthrough came through when I started focusing from one-time cleanings to recurring revenue. So again, I know I just mentioned this, but I wasn't really taking it seriously at the time. I was thinking, oh, I got to get some clients, but it wasn't until I really focused on it and made that the number one focus that it really changed my business, because that's when I really started focusing and producing the results that I'm talking about today. So the recurring packages, the incentives, the offers that I'm making at the right time, right? Either at the end of a successful cleaning or on the front end during the sales process, I was doing this with every single client. And the result was that I jumped from $30,000 per month by month 6 because half of my revenue became predictable and recurring. Instead of starting from zero every single month, I was building on the foundation that got stronger each month. So month 4 was over 5K recurring. Month 5 was over 9K recurring. Month 6 was over 15K recurring, right? The recurring revenue gave me the confidence to reinvest in growth because I knew I had a baseline that would continue regardless of how many clients I got. However, getting from that next level, getting to 40K wasn't smooth, right? At 30K, I hit a major bottleneck that almost broke me. I was still doing everything myself, taking sales calls, scheduling cleanings, handling customer service, managing cleaners, dealing with complaints, processing payments, right? This was what I would call like redlining, right? I couldn't go any further because I was maxed out on everything. I knew I needed to hire help, but then I went through 8 or 9 people in those first few months for various reasons, right? Some of them didn't work out, some of them just couldn't pick it up, and some of them were just not going to be a good long-term fit, and I had to make an executive decision. However, the other part was I thought I really made systems that were clear, but it wasn't until I brought in this help that I realized, oh, okay, it might be clear to me, it's not clear to them because they're not actually getting the result that I want. So from that point, I really made it a point to even document even better videos, detailed SOPs for literally everything. So examples of this are detailed notes for every single client call we have, cleaner onboarding requirements. What is the step-by-step process for actually taking them through that process? What's our scheduling process and backup plans for any kind of cancellations, no-shows? What's our quality control procedures for photos, client follow-up scripts, complaint resolution steps? What's our customer service scripts for common situations around pricing, questions about scheduling, complaints, upselling to recurring services, right? All of that is what really took it to the next level. So instead of spending a week training someone for the first time again, I would just give them everything they need to do, let them learn all about it, and then start implementing them into our business. So today, my structure at 40K per month looks like this, right? We've got 17 cleaners across 5 sub-service areas. We've got 3 support staff handling operations, and I manage everything with 1 to 2 hours per day. Here's how my typical day looks now. So 8, 9 a.m. when I wake up, I'll check overnight messages and check in with the team just to make sure everything's good, set for the day. Around lunchtime, I'll review any completed jobs, any issues that might have been escalated to me. And then at the end of the day, we're confirming tomorrow's schedule, handling any problems, and understanding how our sales for the day, how our hiring for the day. And then we'll have one weekly meeting where we go over business metrics and what we're trying to do within a given week or a month in terms of high level vision and goal setting. The business does run without me because the systems run the business, right? So my support team handles all the client intake and scheduling, cleaner coordination and route planning and logistics, quality control and client follow-up, any kind of payments or billing or processing, and basic customer service, right? Complaint resolution. And I only get involved in major decisions, right? Like hiring new team members, strategic planning. The key insight is that I'm not working in the business, right? I'm working on the business. Now, let me tell you what I'd do differently if I was starting this business in 2026, because these lessons could save you months of time and thousands of dollars and not really take as long as I did. So first, I'd research pricing correctly from day one and not discount automatically. This mistake cost me probably thousands of dollars in the early month. That means no discounting, no special rates, no competing on price. I position myself as premium from day one and stick to it. Now, when someone asks for a lower price, I'd have a prepared response about the value that they receive rather than immediately caving in and offering a discount. Second, I'd hire plenty of cleaners before getting clients. So I'm never tempted to do any kind of poor hire mistakes just to get some revenue in the door, because the people that make this mistake, honestly, they do it because they're in a place of desperation. It's not that they have bad intention, but they make bad hires because they're trying to force the business forward instead of being well prepared on the front end, right? So having a clear process for doing it, making sure you have enough volume to get the reliable cleaners on the team. This way, when the client books, I can immediately assign a cleaner that I know is going to be great. And instead of scrambling to find someone, or for some people, doing it themselves, which is the worst case scenario for your time. And then third, I document everything from week one instead of waiting until I was overwhelmed, right? So I'd create checklists literally for everything I mentioned before, right? What's your client intake process with exact questions and responses? What's your cleaner onboarding and screening process, right? What does that look like? How do you schedule and coordinate backup plans when those things arise? What's your quality control process with follow-ups and specific timelines? This is the difference between scaling to 10K and 40K beyond. Systems allow you to grow beyond the bottleneck. So I'd set up a simple tracking system from day one. It doesn't need to be super complicated. Just a spreadsheet with all the information we talked about should be good enough. So when you have that data, what it allows you to do is make decisions not based on your emotions, but based on what it's telling you, where to focus your time and energy, what's providing real return. Next, I would reinvest all my profits back into the business for the first 6 months instead of pulling money out early. To me, every dollar I invested in marketing, better systems, better people, came back as multiples in additional revenue. So, right, I would invest in marketing to get more clients, systems and new tools to improve efficiency, right? Better people on the back end or first hires so you can start to focus on growth, right? The faster you reinvest, the faster you grow. And the sooner you reach your true financial freedom is really the goal at the end of the day, not something in the short term in the first couple months. And the fifth thing I would leverage is technology right from the beginning, because in 2026, there are so many tools available that are great and you can leverage them, right? Scheduling software, CRM software, website, payment processing, customer relationship management, right? All of those things can be available, and these cost money up front, but they will save you massive amounts of time and prevent mistakes that cost even more money. So knowing what I know now, someone could definitely hit 10K in less than 90, 120 days instead of the 4 months that it took me by avoiding these mistakes. Obviously, I've worked with clients that have literally done this. So the path path is clear. If you can do these things, there's no reason why you can't hit this out. In the first 3 months, I went from 0 to 10K. I really got the fundamentals down. It was really in months 4 through 9 where I built systems, expanded my service area, hired a team, and managed to hit 40K just working 1 to 2 hours per day. So if I started for 2026, all of those things that I mentioned about pricing, recurring revenue, having documented systems, having real processes in place for hiring are going to be key. Now, if you want my complete system to build from 0 to 10K in 120 days or less, click the first link in the description to learn more, and I'll see you over there. Have a good day.